She was once a carefree rich girl, but because of one accident, she discovered the secret of eternal life. She saw a boy crouching under a tree, drinking mouthful after mouthful of spring water from the roots, and that strange act instantly sparked her curiosity. But the moment the boy noticed Winnie's presence, his whole body tensed up as if he were facing a deadly enemy. Winnie was also frightened by the boy's strange behavior and had no idea what to do. Seeing that Winnie seemed to be the only person around, the boy asked with a trace of desperate hope.
How long have you been standing there?
Not long at all. I was only walking past and I...
You should turn around and go home. Faced with Jessie trying to drive her away, Winnie refused to back down, firmly saying that this entire forest belonged to her family, and that she had only gotten lost for a moment. After learning that Winnie was only lost, Jessie had no choice but to personally take her home. But before they had gone very far, Winnie suddenly turned around, wanting to take a sip of the spring water. Seeing this, Jessie hurried forward to stop her.
You don't want that water. It's poison.
Winnie was not going to believe such an obvious lie. When persuasion failed, Jessie had no choice but to grab her by force. Terrified, Winnie struggled free with all her strength and ran off in a panic. As she fled, a branch tore a long slit through the hem of her dress, but just as she was about to shake Jessie off, she turned her head and ran straight into Jessie's older brother, Miles. Ignoring his younger brother's objections, Miles forcibly carried Winnie away, planning to take her home and let their father deal with her. Worried that Winnie might be hurt, Jessie hurried after them through a small path, and before long, they arrived at the place where his family lived. A long time ago, while Jessie's family was fleeing danger, they accidentally drank from the spring beneath an ancient tree. From that moment on, they gained the power to live forever and remain forever young. To protect this secret, one powerful enough to overturn the world's understanding of life, the whole family agreed to meet in the town once every 10 years. Every time they reunited, they would go to the quiet lakeside cottage deep in the forest, sharing the strange and wonderful experiences they had gathered across the long years in a warm atmosphere. Those stories, whether thrilling or tender, carried their reflections on life and their longing for one another. But Winnie's appearance shattered all that peace. She was the wealthy young lady of the town, sweet and beautiful, like an angel who had drifted in from a dreamlike wonderland. But her mother always made her wear those painful corsets and sit at the piano playing dull, lifeless pieces. In front of those so-called nobles, she had to force a smile and falsely display refined interests she did not truly enjoy deep down. That suffocating and oppressive life was like a heavy set of shackles, filling Winnie with an unprecedented longing for the vast, free world outside. That longing grew wildly in her heart like untamed weeds. Winnie would often quietly stare at the mysterious, deep forest beyond the fence, her eyes filled with yearning and curiosity. She always felt that a mysterious and powerful force inside that forest was softly calling to her. It was a quiet night, and the watery moonlight gently spilled across the yard, draping the entire world in a thin silver veil. Winnie was happily catching the glowing fireflies as they flickered through the air. Suddenly, an old and unfamiliar voice quietly came from behind her. Winnie turned around and walked forward to greet the old man. To win her favor, the old man caught a firefly and gave it to her as a gift, then asked whether Winnie could help him find someone. Just as Winnie was about to respond, her cautious mother interrupted their conversation. She harshly ordered the old man to leave at once, then pulled Winnie away. At that moment, the old man began humming a song. Her mother's strict scolding had been out of concern for Winnie's safety, but unexpectedly, it acted like a catalyst, intensifying her longing in pursuit of the outside world. So her parents decided to send her to a prestigious girls' school to study. But in Winnie's mind, that girls' school was like a gloomy prison, filled with restraint and oppression, with no freedom at all. The anger in her heart was instantly ignited, and she could no longer endure a life arranged by others. She suddenly rushed out of the room, ran with all her strength, crossed the fence that had trapped her for more than 10 years, and sprinted toward the depths of the forest she had always dreamed of. Although this forest was her father's property, vines twisted everywhere, and the paths were as complicated as a maze, so very few people ever came here. Stubborn Winnie pushed through the thick thorns and kept exploring forward. Just then, she saw a boy crouching beneath the roots of a giant tree, drinking water. Then a series of things happened that Winnie never could have expected, and in the end, Jessie's older brother Miles forcibly carried her away to the lakeside cottage deep in the forest. Seeing Miles roughly drag Winnie down from the horse, his kind mother hurried forward to stop him. Miles explained that Winnie had learned the secret of the spring, and emphasized that she was the daughter of a wealthy man in town. His mother's heart tightened suddenly, and worry appeared on her face. Looking at the frightened Winnie, the mother gently comforted her, then told Miles to go across the lake and call their father back. After Miles walked away, the mother took a delicate music box from her pocket. The moment Winnie saw the music box, suspicion rose in her heart, because the melody from the music box was the very tune the old man had hummed that night. She vaguely sensed that the people the old man was looking for were Jesse's family. At the same time, Winnie's parents had also discovered that their daughter was missing. Time passed little by little, and even late into the night, there was still no sign of their daughter. Her mother looked out at the dark fence beyond the window, burning with anxiety. Suddenly, she remembered the mysterious old man from before, and an ominous feeling rose in her heart, making her wonder whether he might have taken her daughter. Winnie's father, Robert, immediately went to the police station to report the case and told the sheriff his wife's description of the suspect. But he never could have imagined that the suspect was also at the police station, and that he was looking for someone too. After a conversation, the old man said he had nothing to do with Winnie's disappearance. If Robert could use his connections to help ask around for the people he was searching for, he would also be willing to go into the forest and look for Winnie. On the other side, Jesse's father returned to the lakeside cottage, carefully studying the beautiful girl before him. Then the family gathered together and discussed how to deal with this difficult situation. Because Winnie's identity was special, Jesse's family found themselves caught in a dilemma. To make sure nothing went wrong, they discussed it and decided to let Winnie stay with them for a while. They thought that after they became more familiar and closer to each other, they would send her back to her original home. During this time, they treated Winnie warmly, like an honored guest. At mealtime, the table was filled with fragrant food, but Winnie remained unhappy, saying that she wanted to go home. Seeing this, the mother quickly comforted her softly and promised they would send her home. Only that now was not the right time. The father also agreed, saying that once everyone had built trust with one another, they would send her back immediately. At that moment, Miles suddenly lost his temper, feeling that Winnie would sooner or later reveal the secret of the spring. But Jesse firmly defended Winnie, and the two brothers argued over it, finally parting on bad terms. At this moment, Winnie felt like a child who had done something wrong, completely unsure where to place herself. That night, Jesse lay in bed tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep for a long time. From the next room, the faint sound of Winnie talking with his mother drifted over. Listening to their conversation, the corners of his mouth unconsciously lifted, and a happy smile appeared on his face. At daybreak, a thin mist still lingered outside, as if covering the world with a mysterious veil. Jesse gently woke Winnie, wearing a mysterious smile, and softly said he was going to take her to see the Eiffel Tower. Winnie looked confused, knowing they were nowhere near the Eiffel Tower, but she still followed Jesse outside with a trace of expectation. When the warm morning sun gently fell across their faces, they finally arrived at the mysterious Eiffel Tower. Looking at the scattered, messy stones before her, Winnie could not help showing a hint of disappointment, but Jesse did not mind at all and led her toward the top of the hill. As they climbed, Winnie curiously asked about Jesse's age. Jesse did not hide anything and said directly that he was already 104 years old. Winnie took it as a joke and did not take it seriously at all. Before long, they reached the mountaintop, and as they looked into the distance, the lush green forest spread out like a magnificent ocean. For a moment, both of them felt incredibly free and at peace. The gentle breeze slowly brushed across their cheeks, carrying the fresh scent unique to the forest. The crisp, melodious birdsong sounded in their ears, as if nature were performing a beautiful piece of music. At this moment, they forgot all the troubles and worries of the world, losing themselves completely in the beauty around them. But Winnie did not know that deep in the forest within their line of sight, her father was anxiously searching everywhere for traces of her with the police. An officer found a piece of cloth on a tree branch that seemed to have come from Winnie's dress. Although it was only a tiny discovery, at least it gave them a clue to follow. But this forest was so vast that finding one person inside it would take an enormous amount of time and energy. As time passed, Winnie fell completely in love with everything there. Jesse's family lived a simple and plain life. His father made beautiful furniture with his own hands, while his mother went to the river to wash clothes. After a long day of hard work, the couple always showed love for each other, gently feeding cherries into one another's mouths. Life there was plain, yet it overflowed with simple and pure happiness. Winnie also became immersed in this beauty, falling in love with every minute and every second she spent with Jesse. They ran freely through the green fields, touched the soft fur of deer, and felt the liveliness and beauty of life. They played in the crystal-clear stream, talked about the ideals in their hearts, discussed a distant and unreachable future, and boldly imagined every possibility. They did all the things Winnie had never dared to imagine before, and never had the chance to do. Two young hearts quietly moved closer to each other during this beautiful time. Night fell, and the mountain forest grew silent. Filled with an ethereal atmosphere, Jesse picked up a wooden stick and gently tapped it against the stones, making crisp sounds to accompany the beautiful girl before him. Winnie spun in place, dancing barefoot across the fallen leaves. Her hair flew freely with the movement of her body, her figure light and graceful, lively and joyful. Jesse's gaze followed her closely, his eyes filled with fascination. Unable to help himself, he stepped forward and danced with Winnie. Under the glow of the blazing campfire, their figures overlapped, like a pair destined by heaven. Though they had not confessed their burning love to each other, their feelings had already become clear in every meeting of their eyes. Jesse realized he had fallen deeply in love with Winnie, and he gathered the courage to reveal the secret he had hidden for so long. It turned out that when Jesse said he was 104 years old, he had not been joking, and the reason for all of this came from the magical spring beneath that giant tree trunk, which had the power to grant eternal life. At this moment, Jesse hoped that Winnie would also drink from the spring, so she could walk through the long years with him, staying by his side in this world forever. But before Jesse could finish speaking, Miles appeared from behind the stone wall, having heard almost everything they said.
Did he tell you immortality isn't all the preachers crack it up to be?
Hey, leave her alone, Miles.
Ignoring his younger brother's attempts to stop him, Miles began telling their story. Many years ago, his family accidentally drank from that magical spring. To their astonishment, not only did their bodies stop aging, but even after suffering serious injuries, they could quickly recover completely. At first, the whole family was overjoyed, believing they had received an endless blessing from heaven. But every gift fate gives always hides a matching price in silence. Later, Miles got married and had children. As time passed, his wife gradually noticed something was wrong and became convinced that Miles's family had made a pact with the devil. Filled with fear, she took the children and left the family without hesitation. Even worse, after the townspeople discovered that something was strange about Miles's family, they all believed they were using dark magic, and finally burned down their house. Years later, Miles learned that his daughter Anna had died from influenza at only 15, and his wife had lost her mind because of it. Dying alone in a psychiatric hospital, to vent the bitterness in his heart, Miles took part in many battles, but no matter what happened, he simply could not die. Although he had an endlessly long life, his life had become completely meaningless. Miles's emotions deeply affected Winnie, filling her with complicated feelings, and for a moment, she could not decide whether she should drink the spring water or not. The next day, Jesse's father realized that Winnie already knew the secret of the spring, so he rowed a small boat and took Winnie alone to the middle of the lake. He spoke earnestly, saying that as time passed, she would grow from an innocent girl into an elegant woman, then marry the person she loved, have children, taste the sweetness and bitterness of the world, and experience the rises and falls of life. As she slowly grew old, she would discover that life held many layers of meaning, but if she drank that spring water, everything would become different. Her life would forever stop at the moment she drank from it, and she would never again experience a complete life. She would be like a stone stuck by the creek, thoughtless, dragging an empty shell through the same life day after day. Thought appeared in Winnie's eyes, as if there were thousands of words inside her, yet she did not know where to begin. While the two were talking, they did not notice that a pair of eyes was secretly watching them. It was the old man who had appeared at the police station, and the people he had been searching for were Jesse's family. That night, Miles was playing cards in the town casino, secretly cheating, but he was discovered and soon got into a fight with the other men. The old man happened to witness the scene. After Miles was thrown out of the casino, the old man followed him all the way to the forest around the lake, then discovered that Winnie was there too, and a plan formed in his mind. He went to Winnie's parents' home and spread the lie that Jesse's family were all kidnappers, saying that for now, only he knew Winnie's whereabouts. He even used this as leverage to force Winnie's father to hand over the deed to the forest. For the sake of his daughter's safety, Robert could only obey. Once the deal was done, the old man revealed where Winnie was, and Robert immediately gathered men to prepare to rescue his daughter. On the other side, Jesse's family packed their belongings and prepared to begin a new journey. Just as Winnie and Jesse were reluctantly saying goodbye and pouring out their feelings, the old man arrived uninvited, instantly making everyone tense. And what made them even more anxious was that the old man actually knew all of their secrets. It turned out the old man's grandmother had once worked in a psychiatric hospital, and Miles's wife happened to be one of her patients. All the information, including the song he hummed, had come from what the old man heard from his grandmother. Realizing that the visitor had bad intentions, Jesse's father asked the old man what he wanted. The old man said bluntly that he wanted to know the location of the spring. As long as he drank from it, he could gain eternal life and control everything. Seeing that Jesse's father was unwilling to cooperate, the old man quickly pulled out a pistol, took Winnie hostage, and fired a shot into Jesse's heart. But not long after, Jesse stood back up completely unharmed, leaving the old man stunned. So everything his grandmother said had been true. But just as he tried to take things further, the old man ultimately lost his life because of his own greed. Dying with his eyes still open, the mother collapsed onto the ground, her heart filled with self-blame and guilt. She had never imagined that eternal life could lead her to hurt someone else, while she was still drowning in pain. Winnie's father suddenly arrived with the police. With the situation urgent, Jesse could only leave first with his brother, while their parents stayed behind to cover them. Although Winnie kept telling the sheriff that Jesse's family were not kidnappers, the sheriff said someone had to take responsibility for the old man's death. In this way, Jesse's parents would certainly be sentenced to hang. Hearing this news, Winnie's heart tightened with fear. At dusk, lightning tore across the night sky like silver snakes, and Winnie lay in bed, restless and unable to sleep. Just then, Jesse, who had already escaped, suddenly climbed in through the window, hoping Winnie would help him put on an act to rescue his parents. In the dead of night, Winnie hurried toward the police station, her face filled with fear. She told the guard on duty that the two people who had kidnapped her had come back. The moment the guard heard this, he immediately grabbed his weapon and went outside to check. On this dark, windy night, two men in black held long knives, radiating murderous intent. They were Jesse and Miles. After the guard failed to talk them down, he fired directly, just as the guard believed the kidnappers had been shot dead. Jesse, lying on the ground, slowly sat up again. The guard thought he must have seen a ghost, and unable to suppress the fear in his heart any longer, he ran wildly into the distance. At the same time, Winnie successfully slipped into the jail and rescued Jesse's parents. Then everyone climbed into the carriage they had prepared in advance, ready to flee this dangerous place. Jesse hoped with all his heart that Winnie would leave with them, but Winnie was very clear-headed. She understood that if she followed Jesse's family, she would surely attract the police and become a burden.
Go back to the spring. Drink from it. When it's safe, I'll come back for you.
Will you?
I have to show you the Eiffel Tower, don't I?
1,652 steps to the top.
The time left for the two of them was running out, and Jesse's eyes were filled with attachment and reluctance. This farewell felt like fate tearing them apart without mercy, and perhaps it truly would be a separation for life. As dust rose into the air, the carriage moved farther and farther away. Winnie stood sadly in place, and even though the wind and sand stung her eyes, she stubbornly wanted to catch one last glimpse of Jesse, while bitterness spread through her heart like a tide. Time passed, and on a special day, Winnie personally witnessed her grandmother's final farewell with her mother. Her grandmother lay quietly on the sickbed, while her mother held her hand tightly, her eyes filled with attachment and reluctance. The coming separation between life and death did not make the scene feel entirely sorrowful. For some reason, from that heavy atmosphere, Winnie felt a different kind of warmth. It was the strength brought by family, like winter sunlight, faint but enough to comfort the heart. On the day they sent her grandmother away, a faint sadness filled the air. Winnie could no longer hold back the grief in her heart, and tears of sorrow fell. Her mother seemed strong, trying hard to keep her face calm, but inside, she was already covered in wounds. The breeze gently brushed her mother's clothes, and Winnie quietly walked to her side, wanting to give her more strength and use her warm company to drive away the pain in her mother's heart. Parting is like a lingering cold rain, bringing pain to the heart, yet it is also an unavoidable road on the journey of life. Because it exists, people come to understand how precious every reunion truly is, and it allows deep affection to grow richer and more enduring through the settling of the years. In the days that followed, Winnie often sat alone beneath that ancient tree, lost in long thought. In countless quiet moments, Jesse's voice and smile would clearly appear before her eyes. Again and again, she imagined the scene of reuniting with Jesse, perhaps on a sunlit forest path, or perhaps by the lake where the breeze moved softly. Although her longing for Jesse surged like a tide, Winnie's heart remained clear. On a bright spring day, Winnie's whole family left the town, wanting to see the vast world outside and experience a different life. Time flowed on, and the heavy carriages of the past were long replaced by automobiles, while the dusty streets were renewed. The wind roared past his ears, and his thoughts drifted far away with it. Jesse rode a motorcycle back to the town filled with memories. He took off his helmet, revealing the same face still frozen at 17 years old. Time seemed to have left few marks on him, but only he knew the weight of age inside his heart. Passing through a hidden path, Jesse arrived before the ancient tree that carried countless memories. He had imagined countless scenes of reunion, but he had never imagined that what waited for him would be a flower-covered tombstone. Winnie had used her tombstone to block the spring, giving up eternal life, and in silence, it told the story of her lifelong love and promise to Jesse. She spent her entire life thinking it through and came to understand that what is truly terrifying is not death, but being alive without ever truly living. Winnie had fallen in love with the best young man in the most beautiful years of her life, and her youth and love bloomed brilliantly that summer. She had traveled the vast world and seen countless sunrises and sunsets. She was born like a dazzling summer flower, never withering, never fading, burning with natural brilliance, and when she died, she was like a quiet autumn leaf, neither showy nor chaotic, graceful as drifting smoke. Even withered, she still kept her proud, pure elegance. The immortal Jesse would never feel lonely again, because in this moment, all his bitter solitude finally had a place to return to. Winnie's love was like the spring of eternal life, silently watching over him through the long river of time and nourishing the rest of his life.